Who's doing what?
I gotta open my document.
I gotta find music.
Welcome, everyone, to the Dauntless Academy podcast, where we are, super prepared to teach you about how to make your life happier and healthier. And just want to have a little fun today with a unfinished business episode. All right, boys.
All right.
So,
Wait,
where
hold
should
on. Drew, do you use
Okay.
dry or wet lubricant on your bike?
Dry.
Yikes.
Okay. Like Teflon? Because I cleaned my bike yesterday and I didn't know. I bought some dry lubricant, but sometimes, people be like, that's new school bullshit. Just WD-40 it.
No, I mean there's if you keep a good bike chain, you get some. I mean it's minor, but you do get some wattage savings. So like it might be. I'm trying to think of the numbers that Josh Lipka found, my cycling coach and pal.
I don't need numbers. I was just bro science.
Well, bro science, you save watts over time with a nice chain, and a wet a wet lubricant is more for like really muddy conditions, and that's not really where you're at. So go with the dry.
Yeah, just limit me like
Nice.
that. Okay. All right. Sorry,
I
Shannon.
have I have a bike question. Do you need a special tool to take pedals off,
You need
or just an adequate toolbox and not
it.
a renter's trash can full of screwdrivers?
So it depends on the pedal you have. If you look on the inside of the pedal, so where the pedal
Mm-hmm.
connects to the crank arm,
Mm-hmm.
some pedals will have a spot for an Allen key that
Mm-hmm.
you can use to change out the pedals. Not most kind of like, I would say, higher end pedals will have that. But if you go to like a Walmart or something like that, they might not have the pedal might not have that Allen key hole, and then you would need a pedal wrench. Sometimes you can convince a pedal to come off with like an adjustable wrench, but it's really difficult to do. I've tried it a couple of times and it's not great. I do have a pedal wrench, but check that inside of the pedal where it meets the crank arm
Mm-hmm.
to see if it has an Allen key, a
Yeah,
spot for an Allen key.
I think that I need to have this little special wrench because a lot of people from the gym are doing this triathlon in mid-September, and Julie borrowed a bike, but the bike didn't have pedals. So I said, you can use my pedals, and my bike is trash. So, but the pedals are nice. So I went to take the pedals off the other day. I had 20 minutes. I was in my basement sweating bullets. I could not figure out how to get this thing off. And then I Googled it and it was like, you probably need a special key. So, probably need a special key.
Well, an Allen key is just a hex wrench.
Yeah, no, that I have that. I have several of those from putting together trash furniture.
How long is it? How long has it been since you've ridden the bike with the pedals?
Over a year. It's been in my basement. They're the tires are flat. Like it's not good.
Oh,
Yeah.
you take worse care of your equipment than I do.
That's just I've literally okay, so I got this bike from my coworker. It's a teenage boy's bike that her son grew out of, and she just let me have it. Um I think I would just need to give it a tune up, go bring it somewhere. But I didn't this year. So oh well. I do CrossFit instead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any more bike questions?
No, I don't think so. I'm really appreciative of your background right now.
Well, I'm happy to.
It's looking a little unsafe.
I could probably just do it for you. Are you going to the gym today?
Probably not.
Okay, moving on. We've spent enough time troubleshooting the pedal situation. This can be done in person.
You started it
What's
there,
next?
lubricant
All I
boy.
asked was dry or wet lube, and then he's talking about wattage savings and crank arms. I just wanted him to be it was a wet or dry question.
All right, whatever.
Unfortunately, my bike chain is not self-lubricating. Go ahead and let's go on the unfinished business.
Okay, so do you guys have topics that you would like
Yes.
to raise from last week? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Drew's ready.
Hit it, Drew.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
I want to address Elliot's claim from season 1, episode 2, that, and I roughly quote, they're getting rid of PE. They're getting rid of PE.
Right.
Now,
It was more along the lines of like it was optional for kids. Like you didn't have to take it every semester, every day.
So this is, I mean, there's actually some truth to what Elliot was saying, but I feel like it needs to be, I feel like a few things need to be clarified, and then feel free to elaborate or argue with me on any points. But historically, when we look at physical education in schools, it was originally more geared towards men, to get them ready for military service, and this also brings up the whole misnomer of like the unattractiveness of muscly women, right? Like this was one of the
Right.
fears very early on, right? And then starting in the 90s and particularly in the 2000s. So before this, physical education was pretty much something that kids would do every day. It was also geared more towards like excelling in certain sports. So the this is probably what I was more familiar with, was like learning the rules of basketball and learning the rules for different different sports like volleyball and stuff like that. We're just kind of like, okay, that's fine. And then especially in 2001, George W. Bush and the Congress at the time, they passed this No Child Left Behind Act, which
Oh, I got out of high school. No, I'm just
is that how you got out of high school?
didn't hurt.
Oh, okay. Anyways, so primarily, like, right, the idea is that the country in general needs to focus on core academic subjects. And since that time, we've seen a decline in requirements for PE, art, music, all of those secondary classes, the unified arts, we would call them in school, but they're now deemed to be secondary classes because they're not of an academic significance, because they don't get tested on them. So while we don't have, schools that are totally getting rid of physical education, you do have an extreme decrease in the amount of time that kids are receiving physical education. So it's gone from a scenario in which you have kids in PE every day to maybe they have it once or twice a week. I'm pulling up my statistics here. So this is pretty sad, I guess.
Where is this from?
This is from a book written by Claire Nader. She's a social scientist, and it's called "You Are Your Own Best Teacher: Sparking the Curiosity, Imagination, and Intellect of Tweens."
Mm.
Yeah, self-responsibility, right?
Yeah. So this
Here we go.
Here's the data that I thought was interesting. 4% of elementary schools, 7% of middle schools, and 2% of high schools have a daily PE requirement.
Whew.
And 22% of schools have no PE at all.
Kind of feel like you're helping my argument out.
It's not a win or lose here, Elliot. I think
I feel like we're losing. We're all losing. The collective.
I agree. Like, I think those are pretty staggering. 22% have no PE at all. That's ridiculous. But I did share that one article with you right after our second podcast, which looked at Texas, and in Texas they've instituted a program to increase the amount of PE, but with that increase, they've experienced limited success, and I would argue that in the article I shared with you, it actually highlighted failures above the successes. And I think that just kind of gets us to a point where I think we agreed at the end last time, but I'm not sure if we did, that the primary goal here for PE really should be the education part. Why are we doing these activities? Educating kids on nutrition, educating kids on how to do movements properly, so they can access any sort of athletic endeavor, not just here are the rules of volleyball, but here are some movements, here's why we're doing them. We're going to build some endurance, we're going to have some fun, make it an enjoyable experience for all. But I think the state of PE looks bleak.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add to that, Elliot.
Yeah, well, I just think that the execution of the programs, just adding more PE, adding more of a bad program, is just going to continue to make results worse. So if they think that they're just going to up the amount of days that they're going to try to teach people volleyball and soccer and all these games or sports, they're just going to be kids and children that are just not going to be interested in it even more, and then have a worse relationship. They have to change the perception of PT, like you were saying, of why. And when I took a PE class, like teaching PE class at UNH, and they really started stressing like the no winner or loser game. And for me, that was kind of tough, because I was like, but there are winners and losers in life. And I think that there are time and place for them to play sports like kickball or like things where you can get eliminated. But I think the majority of the PE experience should be like you were saying, teaching them to move, to jump, to run, and to be okay with that type of stuff, and not feeling like every single physical activity is a win or a lose, right? It's not always about how many push-ups or if you can do push-ups. It's like, hey, this is what we're doing today. And then there will be a bunch of different options, and then everybody moves through. So it's kind of a product of the people that are applying the systems and the curriculum versus, and then also like the funding towards it, and uh, the gym teacher and parents, right? Like you gotta keep sending your kid to school to at least give it a try. I mean, there will always be kids that just do not want to do physical activity, but I think you cast a much wider net when it stops becoming about a sport or a competition, and it just becomes about like, hey, this is just like human movement. This is just what you do to feel better.
Well, I think if there was a little bit more choice as well at a certain point, then so then you might see better engagement. For example, at my high school, I didn't have to take PE. I could take dance class instead, and that was much more intriguing to me. And it still was activity, and an activity I worked way harder at than I ever would have, badminton. So um, it's probably, it's definitely an issue of funding and having enough teachers and, all of that good stuff. But I think if there were more options for kids to choose from within certain boundaries, then you might see better engagement as well.
Yeah, it's just
And
tough
I
with
agree with the whole not winning and what, or well, I shouldn't say agree. I agree with your point about including winning and losing. I think that's fine. The most scarring thing for me from PE class growing up was the uh, two captains picking teams, because little chunky ginger Shannon was not first nor middle, typically last. And I think that's I look back and I go, man, why did my PE teacher just like watch that and think that was fine? Because consistently the kids who are not sporty are always picked last. They're always feeling down about PE class, and that's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth, you know, for years. Did for me.
And I think specifically talking about, or do we agree we're kind of talking mostly about public schools
Mm-hmm.
teachers? I think that a lot of them are kind of, and I think this might be all subjects, but they're kind of railroaded into just being beat down, and that their creativity is kind of zapped out of what they can and can't do. So maybe when that PE teacher first started and they were very excited about educating, like I love teaching kids how to move and lift and everything, but I bet if I worked at a public school and they said, "Hey, here's the curriculum that we've been using for the last 25 years and this is what you
Yeah.
have to do," I would be like, okay." And then I knew that if I went off script, I could get fired or I would just consistently get in trouble or whatever, remediated. You would just be like, I don't care if Shannon cries at the end of class because, like, I just have 2 more classes today and then I get to go home. You know what I mean? It's like, it's
So
hard because it's players, but
you'd be like Goodwill Hunting, but it'd be like good Elliot exercising.
good Elliot.
Point of parliamentary procedure here. The good news is that I actually work in a public school, and I've been a public school teacher for 15 years. So I can provide a little bit of insight into that really just dour net that you cast over the lack of creativity everyone's feeling in public school. And I would argue that that's probably true in some cases, Elliot. I think the bigger issue is not that there's a lack of creativity or kind of that feeling of like, oh my gosh, this curriculum is so overwhelming. Sometimes that's true, but I would say time is the biggest factor. Because I work with a great phys ed teacher right now that introduces the kids to all sorts of different things. My kids go to the elementary school in town, and their physical education teacher is amazing. She brings in bikes from outside organizations and has them has the kids run through like these different cycles, and they do like bike week, they do jump rope week, they do all of these different things to keep them moving and introducing them to things that they might not normally get outside of school. But they only get phys ed, at least at my kids' school, 1 day a week. Phys ed 1 day a week. And when you think about that from working inside of a school system, that phys ed teacher, there's one phys ed teacher to service the entire school. They're pulled in so many different directions. It's so difficult to make connections with other teachers and work on projects with other teachers to bring phys ed into the classroom even more because they're pulled so much. And that's where we go back to the whole funding issue. And
Yeah, she must make a lot of money if she's the only one, right?
Absolutely. No, same as everybody else.
Right.
Well, according to the contract.
Fund the PE teachers.
Do you think we're going to start seeing like a lot more charter schools, Drew, or like kind of like made by parents, homeschools, that kind of thing?
I don't really know. I
thought
know
maybe post COVID we might see more of that, like homeschool collaborative.
I know that the school that I work at is not in the situation currently, but there are a lot of schools in the area that can't fill teaching positions because so many people have left.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's really difficult. The state of education, I would say, is not great. Just in terms of kind of in terms of the societal outlook on public education, it's not great. I mean, if you get me going on this, then we're not going to recover. But it's what drives me nuts, and then I'll get off my soapbox, and then we can move on to something else. What drives me nuts about public education is we have these global issues that we're dealing with. All of these global issues that we're dealing with have to do with physical health, science, understanding history, politics, and civics. Right? Like if you think about like what world am I living in? Those are three pretty major issues.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the two what are the two subjects that are most emphasized? Reading, which we need to read, right? We definitely need to be able to read.
Mm-hmm.
And math. Reading and math are the two subjects that are most heavily tested. And while I am personally a math teacher and I do value the importance of math, I have a really hard time in a system where there's not an emphasis on physical well-being, understanding science, and understanding historical and civic significance. Like that doesn't make sense to me in creating human beings, little human beings that understand how the world should work or is supposed to work. It's just it drives me nuts. But that's my
it does always feel like the topics in school that were like emphasized the most, or that you had, at least for me, I had, growing up with an engineer as a dad, a lot of pressure to perform well in. Like, those are the things that I never used in my life ever.
When's the last time you've borrowed in a 4x4 digit subtraction problem?
Honestly, I don't even know what you're talking about, Drew. Like, I do, but I mean, like, I remember distinctly learning the freaking Pythagorean theorem, and just in like, I don't know, 7th or 8th grade, and looking at my dad and going, Dad, I can promise you I will not use this in my life. And I've kept that promise. Like, there's just no way. So I don't know. Michael and I always say the most like beneficial class that we took at UNH was nutrition. And then, someday probably it will be useful to me that I took that class, making babies, at UNH, which my dad thought was
a wonderful class.
Such a waste of time. He was like, what are you doing? You have to get your biology credit. Why would you take that? I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to school to be a scientist. I'm going to take this class that's going to actually have meaning in my life. And it did teach me a lot. So, and even like those, like, I remember we had those classes in middle school, like life skills, which was like how to cook and all that great stuff. And
class.
Great class.
Those are gone.
Those are wiped. Those are
they're not
wiped.
teaching kids to sew or to cook or anything.
Which I remember making. I don't know what kind of animal it was. I made a stuffed animal for my brother. And I sewed the whole thing, and it was like very.
People always look at me like
satisfying.
I'm crazy because I know how to sew. I'm like, I learned it in home ec.
They definitely don't have. I mean, when we make these big statements, they don't have home ec anymore. That's true.
I actually think that I actually am 99% sure the school district I grew up in still does, because I follow the teacher on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure she's still teaching. Yeah.
Gosh, I would love a good home ec class.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's funny because I feel like and I know we need to move on, but I feel like my high school got a lot of like slack. I went to Kennett High School in North Conway, and
the Eagles.
Yes, the Eagles flying away since 2010 for me. I like the whole like saying like our like rival school would be like, cannot read, cannot write, Kennett kids are not that bright. That was like the thing that people said. And I also said that in my speech. The principal really did not want me to say that, but I said it in my speech at graduation. But looking back, like, I feel like we had a lot of really interesting programs. Like, so far I've said, like, I had the option to do dance class instead of gym class, which we were like the first school in New England to offer an alternative program to gym and things like that. We always had great classes. We had all of the like you could take you could take CAD, I took metals, I learned how to weld, all sorts of stuff like that. We had a lot of programs that were more than just math and science, thank goodness. So, and here I am, a highly successful, now 30-year-old. So
new 30-year-old, yes. A lot of game left, Shannon. A lot of game left.
A lot of game.
TBD. The way that you came in to the podcast this morning was
coming in hot.
a little below par.
To be honest with you, I should not have agreed to do a podcast at 7:00 this
The
morning.
7:04 start time. Yeah, after your 30th birthday, but that shows just how mature you are, is that after a 30th birthday, you're already up and caffeinated.
I'm up and at 'em. I'm always working, always playing hard. Yes.
On that grind. Nash.
Yes.
Should we
lifestyle.
should we transition to another
Yes.
topic that's bad, or
I feel like we
do
can
our-
rage about public schools, the efficacy, and why they even exist for at least. We could
We
just be
go
a
on
show.
and on.
Drew, you could just start your own spin-off podcast and just rant on that after. So let's maybe do some like questions or something. Let's lighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, so do you want to do the mystery questions, or did you guys bring any good ideas to the table?
Mystery question.
I have no good ideas. I only have mystery questions.
Well, I have good ideas. I always have good ideas.
I've been waiting for weeks to do these questions.
Okay. What is your biggest fear? Elliot,
I disagree with Drew. Okay, so biggest fear. I guess it depends what you mean by fear, but I think
what's something that you're fearing right now then? Let's just change it.
Here's the difference between like a fear, right? Like when I'm swimming in a lake, like I don't want to touch a fish, like it like touching, but like am I afraid of fish?
That's a situational fear.
I'm not afraid of spiders, but if there's like a spider on my neck when I'm sleeping and then I see it and I'm like, I don't want that, but I don't like go my day to day. But now that I have a child, it opens up a whole new world of fear and like something like Lucas being hurt in some way. Cause like, obviously, like, what are you afraid of? Oh, I'm afraid of my wife dying or being hit by a truck. It's like, those are easy ones. But I think like ones that like still kind of invade my mind are Lucas being injured, whether that's psychologically or like physically. Just like every time we drop him off with the nanny, not that you know, the nanny is bad, but it's just like situations that you think you're like, oh, I wish I was there. So I could have helped, or we're just walking to the car and then he darts into the road, like that type of stuff. Like I never think of that stuff. Like I'm okay with like getting hurt or like doing some risky things, but it's really once I had a kid now, I like watch movies with kids getting hurt in it, and I can't do it now. It's weird. Turning soft.
So that's what you have like when you think of like intrusive thoughts that you have that you like drum up fear without swimming. You know, you have to be swimming to be fearful of a fish, but things with Lucas, nice.
But the first thing that comes to mind, is like something to be with Luke, something with Lucas. Yeah,
I definitely have those. I have a lot of those like intrusive thoughts about people in my life, especially Michael, like something happening to Michael. It's always he's gotten so good over the years. Like if he's running even 5 minutes late, like he'll text me that he like what time he's leaving. Because if he's late, I'm always like, he's in a ditch, he's dead. Like that's what's happened. So I get that. I think right now my biggest fear is how do I say this without sounding crazy? So we're not at the point where we want to have kids yet, but we're definitely thinking about it and talking about it a lot more. And I have several people in my life who've recently told me that they are with child. And so I feel a little bit of pressure around it as well. And I am very fearful that should we decide to do this thing at some point, that I'm going to like regret it with my whole being and not be a good mom. So I think that's something that I fear a lot, because I really, really like my life, and I don't really know if I would like my life being devoted to another human being.
I think
that's a tough question.
I think in my experience, Shannon, when you make that decision and make that change, you're going to have those like lingering questions throughout your entire pregnancy, and then once you have a child, then it totally changes.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, this is the greatest decision I've ever made. You know,
in a way, it
yeah. But then I'm going to be up at night worried about somebody else dying.
Hold on,
I don't need this.
It depends on why. I think you kind of should look at it the other way of like, what are the worst case? So, my wife and I were just talking about if we should have a second kid and all that stuff, and it was like, but it's just going to be so much more work, and what are we sacrificing? Versus it's like, okay, what am I worried about? Like if the if the main drivers of not having a kid is like a financial thing or a time thing, I don't think those are good reasons to not have a kid. But if you're like, I want this specific things and I have these goals, and if I have a kid, I can no longer climb this ladder or do this thing, and it would take a break, and then I truly wouldn't be able to make what I actually want to do, then maybe kids aren't for you, or potentially like adopting, a slightly older kid so you don't have to go through that 2, 3-year-old phase. But it I think you should list the like have a long talk and just kind of like, okay, here are the reasons selfishly why I don't want to have a kid. And then you
Yeah.
kind of just can look at your peers that have kids and be like, well, are they eliminated? Can they still go out? Do they still have money? Because like, I don't think financially a kid makes sense at all, especially now for anyone. But somehow it just happens and you just do it. You know what I mean? You just make it happen. And then like sleeping and time wise, it doesn't make sense to have a kid either, but I still have time to do stuff. And so
Yeah.
and so does Drew. So it's kind of like you figure it out. It's not like oh, you had a kid, Shannon, so now your career's done, your body's done, your everything is done. No more scooting around Exeter whenever you want.
I know we're scooting. We really are enjoying ourselves, Drew. We got these electric scooters. Actually,
I've
over there.
I've seen Michael on Instagram on his scooter.
Oh, you saw the video. Yeah,
Yeah,
we got it.
he looks really happy.
Oh, we've gone every single night, and this is what I'm saying. Like we came back from our first night of scooting, and it was just like it was so beautiful out. We were probably out and about for like almost an hour, just like all around Exeter, and the air felt great and just full of life. And we came back, and he was like, I guess that's one of those things that we really wouldn't be doing if we had a baby. And I was like, well, could you strap the baby to the front of you and we just still do it? And he's like, I don't know. I think we'd probably be getting a lot of side eye for that, wouldn't we? I'm like, well, I don't know if I care.
Right.
So,
There are lots of contraptions for bikes and for scooters that you can bring your kid right along. Like the first couple of weeks are a little bit, you got to be a little cautious, but then like just
yeah. That neck is still.
Someone told me the other day, because I had signed the kids up for their first real mountain bike race, and I was talking about how I was really nervous about that, and he was like, "Hey, you can't put him back in the womb, man. Like it's just not a thing you can do. So you just got to let him.
Yeah.
You got to let him go, and
That's a good
can't
saying.
worry so much about that."
Yeah.
And so
All
far
right.
that I've noticed, I'm very early parent. This is the last thing I'll say, but you really get to re-experience like life again, watching your kids grow up. So like
Yeah.
riding bikes around isn't super fun, but like riding a bike down in like the cul-de-sac where there are no real cars, and seeing Lucas like ride a bike for the first time and experience that, it like you share it with him, and it feels
Yeah.
amazing. I haven't felt that excited to ride a bike and since I bought one for myself in like 9th grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
so it's like you see the first time you put your kid on an electric scooter and watch that, and you're just like, this is the best thing ever. All right.
We're a scooting family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please
Well,
scoot, man.
thank you guys. I mean, it's all the same things that everybody tells me. I'm very open about this fear, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just
But I also don't think you should just have a kid because that's what
no, that's the thing. This isn't one of those things that I always make huge decisions like very carefully, and actually the way that I make a lot of big decisions in my life, which I've gotten feedback that this is not a good way to do it, but it's worked well for me, is I'll think about what would I regret more, and I don't do that thing.
Right.
So this is a difficult one to answer because I don't actually know what it feels like, obviously, to be a parent. I think that would probably have better merit for a second or third kid, right? But yeah, I don't know. So we'll see.
If all your
Whatever.
friends are having kids, you also have to factor in you being lonely because your kids that you just do different things as parents. You can't do certain things. So like you'll have like a 40th birthday and go out on a yacht and do all this stuff, and none of your friends will be able to be there because they're like, we have 3 kids. We can't bring them on the yacht.
Yeah, I guess. But
just more factors. That's all.
You were at my birthday party last night, Elliot. It wasn't really anything crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
There were several kiddos there, but
right.
yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
It's all what you want. Next question.
Okay. Well,
Drew,
did you have a biggest fear you'd like to share?
Snakes.
Snakes?
Yep.
All right, moving on.
I used to have a ball python named Bonesaw.
Did you
that it
really?
wrapped,
Wow, really?
but the ball python wasn't the most apex predator, so I had to flick the mice in the back of the head to make them like, and then the ball python would get it, or I would just spin them around by the tail. But since they would be so shifty when they were dizzy, little Bonesaw couldn't get them. He tried to eat them sideways. It was so bad. I didn't know if it was boy or girl, but
Just
I,
him talking about a ball python, whatever that is gonna terrorize my sleep tonight.
it sleeps in
Because
a little ball.
great, that's great. Because what's gonna happen is I'm gonna have that. I'm formulating that image in my head, and it's gonna terrorize me in whatever time I go to bed. In 14 hours when I go to sleep, I'm gonna be terrorized by whatever my imagination comes up with this ball python.
Have you ever had a ball python like crawl on your arm? It's actually really interesting how the scales move across your skin because it like just grabs on all the way up its body. It's like a very weird experience. You should try it.
No, I'm not going to do that. And I'll tell you, I'll relate one story with you to you, and then we'll move on to the next question. So this is my friend Chris's like favorite story about me. We were walking through downtown Portsmouth one night, and there's a little group of us, and he was like, "Oh, I was talking with everyone, and you were there," and then all of a sudden I looked back, and you had crossed the street to the other side. I was like, "What the heck's going on?" Well, so to like provide some more insight into that, we were walking as a group, and I looked up the sidewalk, and there was this man with this giant yellow and white boa constrictor wrapped around his neck. And I was like, no.
Absolutely
and
not.
Ran right across the street to get as far away as possible. I just
That's hilarious.
I can't do it. So
I'm actually now wishing that I didn't share this very vulnerable fear about myself, because I could have just shared that I am terribly afraid of needles, which is another reason why I don't want to have a baby, because I'm going to get poked with needles constantly.
I had a vulnerable one too, but we talked about other people's vulnerabilities, so we can move on to a new question.
Oh, but I want to hear your vulnerabilities.
It's not that good. Go ahead.
All right. What fruit do you think you could throw the farthest, and why?
I think an orange.
That's
because
got good, yeah.
It's baseball shaped. Number one, it's got a good weight. Right? Because if something's too light, you can't throw it very far.
Mhm.
It's not too heavy though. It's also right. If you think like, okay, well, maybe what about an apple? Right? The orange has that dimpled flesh, that dimpled
Mhm.
skin, so almost kind of like a golf ball for
Mhm.
improved aerodynamics.
Mhm.
I'm going with an orange.
I think you might have just taken the cake with that, depending on the size of the orange. Like, we're not talking about a mandarin orange. We're talking about something with
A regular navel orange.
Navel orange.
Why
Okay.
are you laughing, Elliot?
I mean, it's hard to argue with all of the points that you just made and I'm trying to think of like a flat fruit that I could throw like a frisbee, but to potentially get some glide, but I don't think that's
like a slice of watermelon might work out, but not the whole thing. I might say peach, only because I have experience throwing peaches, and that's personal experience. But it's not that nice round shape. But I don't know, maybe the pit would help a little bit. I don't know. A
lot of wind resistance, right? Like, why do swimmers shave? To improve aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Well, water dynamics.
For a quick answer to a mystery question, because Drew truly does not know these. He's the one of us who's not read any of these questions in advance. I think we move on. I think we move on.
Medium-sized navel orange. I got nothing against it.
Okay. What is your spirit animal? And I got to be honest, I don't love this question because I don't know enough about different animals.
I had to write a paper on this for my senior English project.
Oh, so let's hear it then.
Use that, and it's a fox. That's the animal that I picked.
Do you feel that you still emulate the characteristics that you wrote about in high school? Have you changed since high school?
So I still feel like it's actually interesting because you know how people say I feel no further from anyone other than 2001 me on Facebook or whatever. You know how sometimes like what you posted on Facebook and you're just like, why did I say
there's
that?
nobody less like me than that person.
Right. Yeah. So I go back and forth between that because I see some of the things that I've done and read in high school, and I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely me. And then other things, I'm like, that is not me at all. So,
Mhm.
um, as a spirit animal, I think in the spirit of who I am, yeah, I think potentially how I explained that I was a fox, I guess, would still apply. I'm just older and the tail's a little more scraggly.
My sister also feels that her spirit animal is a fox because mostly, well, for many reasons, but mostly because um, they can be alone or in packs, I guess. So that's a good trait. Do you feel that you share that trait?
Yes, I would say that I'm 50-50 extroverted and introverted. I love
Hmm.
being around people and I get a lot of energy, but then also when I'm done and I just want to go home and be by myself.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm not really good at this question because I don't really have a lot of, I don't know, animals in mind. Like, I feel like I would lean towards like some sort of like crazy animal, or like some sort of tree climbing monkey or something like that. But
What animal do you like? Maybe if I think the spirit animal question is difficult. Like sometimes we reframe it with the kids, and they're like, "What would be your Patronus?" If you're a Harry Potter wizard,
mhm,
because Patronus is kind of like a spirit animal.
yeah, like what would come to you in your
Yeah,
dire straits?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This
You think of
7:48 a.m. the day after my 30th birthday party, it's not coming to me.
oh boy,
I need my Patronus at this time, and it's not coming.
I've had this discussion before, and I don't think this necessarily a spirit animal. It's more of a Patronus thing. Uh, but mine would be a goose.
A
A
goose.
goose, yeah. Because and it's more because like just over time, um, geese or a goose have just like kind of shown up at critical critical moments or junctures, and I thought that was interesting. Plus I've been like, I've enjoyed watching birds, um all my life, so they've kind of been prevalent for a really long time. So um yeah, we're going with a goose.
Oh,
I do I do
wait,
like the idea of a bird
geese.
that flies.
Did you
Geese?
know that
Oh,
geese will kill or keep away smaller snakes and eat them?
oh, see, perfect.
Wow.
So
I
geese are
didn't
safe,
know. I didn't know that.
but they don't do it to larger snakes though. Like,
Wow.
They walk across the street for larger snakes.
yeah,
I would never. I would never live in an area with really large snakes. So
then stick to the geese because they'll, sorry.
They'll save you. All right. I like the idea of a flying bird, mostly because I think that'd be fun to be that. But I don't know. Okay. Who has the prettiest feet? Let's take this from here. How do you feel about your feet? Do you have pride in your feet? Indifferent about your feet? Or
I think I spent a couple of days at a campground 2 weekends ago.
mhm.
Yeah, 2 weekends ago, and I tried to walk around barefoot, and I used to walk around barefoot as a kid. My feet are just in terrible shape, and I say that like I cannot walk a hundred yards without just doubling over in pain, from stepping on little pebbles and grains of
Well, they're
sand.
just
Oh
sensitive.
yeah,
They're
you grew
just
up privileged.
sensitive.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I know. I
gotta
used to
walk around
walk on
barefoot.
I used to walk on the hot pavement in 95-degree heat from my parents' house to my grandmother's.
Mhm.
And now I mean, you couldn't pay me to do that. It hurts so much.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely not me. It's definitely not me. I have lots of calluses and weird stuff. So
Well, I can tell you, according to my very own husband, it's definitely not me. My feet. I was somewhat premature. I think I was like a month premature or something, and I think that my feet were affected. Like my mom said that they were still kind of like webbish when I was born, and they still kind of are. They're very strange. They're very small. My little pinky toe is just there for looks and not looking good. And we call my three middle toes the tri toe because they're like like a lump, and then the toes stick out. Like they look like they're like a 3-headed dog on one toe. So I would show you, but I think the show
Save
would
that for the
be. I
OnlyFans.
think the
Yeah.
show would be flagged for something bad. So
This woman's
yeah.
only got 3 toes.
my feet are messed up. So Elliot, I think it's looking like you might have the best feet, but I've actually never seen your feet. So
I think I do. Utility wise, I'm very happy with what my feet provide me. I'm very grateful for them. In
yes,
terms of
yes.
look, I don't think I have like great looking feet, but compared to when I see other men's feet, I got the beat for sure.
You
Because
do
they're not. I mean, I'm not saying that my feet are great. I'm just saying that I've seen some just like
gnarly feet.
gnarly men's feet.
Well,
I think almost any woman has my feet beat, my feet
not this one.
beat, but except for Shannon. But like if it was like a spectrum and then it fades into like the most gnarliest like men's feet, I'm like right on the border of like I might be able to pass my foot as a woman's foot.
Oh.
Because the features, and by I mean like subtle features, they're not like hairy. They're not just like they don't look like they've been to war a couple times and back and hit with a grenade. You know, it's like I don't have like wide. They just look like feet. Except I do have a decent sized space in between my big toe and the rest of my toes.
She's probably got some good balance there. Get it moving.
So yeah, it's kind of like you have like the extra
It's like
space.
the true thumb of your
The thumb
foot.
of it is a true thumb. It's not just like
That's putting some strange images in my mind about your feet. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't
it's
know.
not that aggressive. There's just a space. All
All
my
right.
other toes are very proportional.
This is not. I'm saying this not to like to instill more fear into your parenting parenting fears, Shannon. But my mother, as a young child, well, as a baby, cut off my pinky toe. Not the whole thing, but like the like cut off the tip of it.
How'd she do that?
I don't know, using a pair of
Disregard
nail
butter.
clippers. Using a pair of nail clippers, she
Damn.
totally incised my pinky toe, so it's really wacky looking. So it's like it's kind of like a little hook nub thing, and this is maybe where you might feel better about yourself, because there's nobody that could top my mother in terms of like obsessing over different physical things about their children, right? And so she did this thing to my foot, so never again will I let her touch my feet. I don't let my mother do anything. She's not allowed to touch me, because later in life, when I think I was a teen, I must have been in high school. I don't know what it was. She was like looking in my ear. She's like, "Oh, you've got a blackhead in your ear." It's like, "Oh, okay. Like that's really not a big deal." And she's like, "No, let me at that. I'm gonna fix it for you." And she took a suction cup, like not like a syringe, and stuck it in my ear to try and suck out the blackhead. Well, to this day, there is still a lasting bump and scar from all of the damage that she inflicted with that maneuver.
New fear. I'm afraid of Drew's mom.
Seriously.
If my mother says she can fix some sort of physical ailment, run away. Okay, next question.
Wow. Okay, next question. Favorite go-to breakfast? Well,
Oatmeal
lately,
with a little bit of jelly, coffee. But before that, I drink a full glass of water, and then I do 2 packets of oatmeal with like half a teaspoon of like strawberry grape jelly, depending on how fancy I'm feeling, and I mix that up. Sometimes I'll put like almond butter or peanut butter in there.
yeah.
That's like it's just so easy. I just turn on the electric kettle, and I just pour that shit on
Pour it
there.
over.
Yeah, my food is super basic, but then I'm also making myself like an espresso latte thing going on in my regular hot water.
You gotta make room somewhere. Easy breakfast. I switch it up a lot with my meal prep, because breakfast for me is tough. If I can manage to make like fresh fried eggs on toast with some sort of vegetable or avocado, that's like I can eat that repeatedly over and over again. But I don't always have time to make fresh eggs.
You're not answering the question, Shannon. The question is, what is
Like
your
go-to?
breakfast?
Well, all right. Well,
Thank you, Drew.
I'm
You're
going to our favorite breakfast spot today, and I'm going to get my favorite breakfast there, which is their
Not
homemade.
favorite, go to.
This is my go-to. This is when I sit down somewhere. This is what I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to my favorite restaurant, and I'm going to have this.
And I'm going to
Well, you
have.
guys, I don't really have a go-to breakfast because
Which
I'm a
one do you
meal
eat most
prepper.
frequently?
I meal
Go
prep,
to
so
is
I don't.
synonym for like most often. Like, oh, I don't know what to make. I'm just gonna make this because I just know. It's my go-to.
Coffee and not eat.
Okay.
Oh,
Then that's what it is.
If I haven't meal prepped, then that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's your go-to.
But if you really don't want to know my freaking favorite breakfast that I'm going to eat this morning, then we can
what's the
move right
question?
on.
That's
What's
a
the
different
question?
question.
Don't be offended.
My favorite breakfast is not.
Well, I
oatmeal and
believe
jelly.
somebody else asked, "What's your favorite breakfast?"
Oh, look! It says here.
Look
we
at
want to know
this.
Shannon's favorite
How
breakfast. What
about
she's
that?
doing this morning after her 30th birthday.
Well,
Right.
if you want to see what I'm going to have for breakfast, you can follow me on Instagram at ShanShanRebel, and I'll be posting it today.
I'm guessing Drew's is going to be an orange that he can throw.
Yeah,
It's an exercise and a breakfast.
hit us with it, Drew. This better be good. What's your go-to breakfast?
I always start with 32 ounces of lemon water, and then I have my coffee. And lately, I think if you had asked me this question 2 years ago, it would have been toast with peanut butter. But lately, I've transitioned to oatmeal with probably 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, a tablespoon of maple syrup, and like a cup of blueberries, all kind of mixed together.
Yummy, yummy.
Nice go-to breakfast, Drew. All right, next question.
You know, you two have some energy you need to check. Thank you. All right. Well, the last question we have is Billy's, but I want to ask you guys a different question that somebody asked me yesterday in honor of my 30th birthday.
Why are we just snubbing Billy in a trunk right now?
Because Billy's is great and we're going to ask it, but I think it's a better one to end on. So, the question that I have for you, which is just a little bit heavier, is what's a lesson that you've learned in the last year that you're going to carry with you, or recently? You got one, Elliot? What's
Yeah,
that smile?
I have a couple. I recently learned and experienced the term gaslighting, and I'm going to be vague on purpose, but gaslighting. I always heard that term before.
I actually learned that too. These guys, we were talking about our go-to breakfast, and I was
That's not
gaslit.
gaslighting. That's not gaslighting. That was us being no. And so I always heard the term, and I was like gaslighting, and I kind of had an idea of what it meant through like context clues and everything. And then I read the definition. Someone said it again. I was like, I need to look up this definition. And then I asked people like, okay, what's your definition of gaslighting and all that stuff? And I think it is hard to explain because when it's happening, it kind of starts to feel like, oh, maybe just a misunderstanding. But then when it really happens to you and you're seeing it, it's very interesting.
Mm.
So
I was actually listening to this thing that like gaslighting is something that's like overused right now. Like I think if you so much as
became trendy.
if you like somebody, I was actually listening to this other podcast. We're totally stealing from them. They were talking about like that word has just become kind of annoying, but it's like even if I just so much as disagree with you, you're like, oh, you're gaslighting me. And it's like, well, now you're gaslighting me because I was just agreeing with you. So by saying I'm gaslighting you, you're gaslighting me.
Mine was more of like the definition of gaslighting that was like used. It wasn't just like trendy.
Can you? Why don't you share the official Webster's Dictionary version or definition of gaslighting, so that our conversation is contextually accurate?
Well, Drew, what is your
While
manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their own sanity?
We were not doing that with the go-to breakfast comments. You need to question.
All right, fine. Then you were bullying me or something. There's something there. Okay. Well,
one example that didn't. This isn't the scenario that happened, but I think one good example is like when, and maybe all of us have experienced this, like maybe especially younger, is when like you see people like cheating on each other, like in high school or
Mhm.
whatever, and they just say like, "No, I wasn't out with the boys. Like, why would I do that? Why would I cheat on you? That's crazy. You're being crazy." Even though they did, and that you
Yeah,
like
yeah,
have
yeah.
evidence, and you're like, just because they texted me like I don't even know this person. That's gaslighting.
That's like quintessential early gaslighting. Yeah.
Early, yeah, that was like trial, but now it gets intricate when you get older. It gets wild.
Yeah. Harder to spot.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a victim of gaslighting. I just experienced it. So I
Okay.
learned about it, and now I can see it a little better.
Yeah.
Sorry if
I
that's
like
not the
that.
greatest like lesson learned, but it's definitely most recent.
Yeah, so based on that definition, I think I would agree with this other podcast I was listening to that it's far more widely used as a term than that.
Yeah, like if you know you don't like somebody and they say something nice about you and they're like, they're just gaslighting. You're just like, no, they just, maybe I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah.
Drew. Sorry, Drew. Am
This
I
is like
gaslighting you?
no, this is a conversation for the young kids. Like this is a weird conversation. The gaslighting for the young ones,
Psychologically manipulating people. It happens all the time.
I guess. Anyways, my answer to the question:
Have you seen politics?
have I seen politics? Yeah, I've seen
There's a little
politics.
bit of gaslighting in politics.
Yes, just a little bit.
He just has a problem with the word. He's stuck in like he can't get
What's
the
the
whole. You want to
what's
call
the
it something
lesson
else?
what's the lesson you're bringing to the table, Drew? Come on.
I really don't feel like I have a great one, but over the last couple of years, the one thing that comes back or keeps cycling back is the whole idea of staying in your lane, right? Like we're all experts in some particular area. We have, some expert knowledge in a particular area. We should stay in our area and listen to other people that are experts in their fields, in their areas, and instead of trying to have an opinion about everything, which is we can have an opinion about everything if we want, but when it comes to making uh, more difficult and broader decisions for the greater good and for society and things like that, like we've got to trust in experts and trust that other people can be right and you can be wrong, and just know your position and know your stature in society. I don't know if that makes sense at all. That's like a really
No, I
Are you
think
saying don't ask your
no,
gym teacher about
actually
global warming? Is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
Are you saying don't ask your gym teacher about their opinion on global warming?
I think that's a good example. Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
yeah, well, that actually goes well with mine, Drew, because I have a couple lessons learned. The one that I shared last night was that like work is always going to be there unless you're like a totally career driven person. Work is just like whether you get it done today, tomorrow, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like don't stress about it. It's fine. But the other one that I have, which goes with yours, Drew, is that at a certain age or at a certain point, I think you start to know the people in your circle and the people in your life well enough to know what you can rely on them for, like who you can rely on, who is going to be helpful to you in certain situations and things like that. And it's okay that people can't do everything, that people have their lane that they're in. And so just like you should know your own lane, start to understand other people in your life and their lane. And it's totally okay that they're not, perfect. There's I was trying to find it. Some doctor came up with like, it's not 10 limiting beliefs, but it's like 10, like unrealistic beliefs or something like that. And that like a lot of people have like under the hood. And, one of them is that like people are either good or bad. And that's based on, how they act towards you and what they do to you. And it's obviously not true. Like people aren't either good or bad. They have, good traits, bad traits in relation to your relationship with them. And yeah, so I agree with you, Drew. And I think it extends to your relationships with other people.
Good add-on. What's Billy's question? I'm curious.
All right, ready for Billy's question? Billy's question is a long one. So it says, Billy from Newmarket asks, when is the proper time to take your shirt off in the Metcon? Is it a ratio of the overall time? How does temperature affect the ratio? Can you take your shirt off during the strength portion of the workout? What about the warm-up? Hell, can you just walk into the gym with no shirt on? And I actually feel we could have a meaningful conversation about this.
I love this question.
I have strong
It's
opinions.
the best
about
question so
this.
far. I can't believe you held this. This could have been. Should have started with this.
I'm sorry.
We didn't save. I guess we save all of the good content for the end, so people have to stay.
I don't know. Or our real fans get the.
You guys
good
could give
stuff.
your opinions, and then I could tell you the real thing.
Okay,
about
so
the shirt off thing.
let's break this question down. So, when is the proper time to take your shirt off in the Metcon? I believe it's the point at which you need a second wind. That's what I think. As somebody who only recently, in the last couple of years, has ever taken their shirt off in a public setting, I am now totally drinking the CrossFit shirt off Kool-Aid, and I save it for somewhere around the middle of a tough Metcon. That's when I do that.
I would categorize you as a level 1 shirt.
Level 1 shirt
You
off.
are level 1. There's 0,
Out
1.
of how
There's
many
0,
levels?
1, 2, and 3. I have a whole
Wow.
We
have a
at
whole
our other
system.
gym, we figured
Okay,
out the
so
whole
I'm level
system,
1.
so-
I can't wait. Now, second part of the question. So, Drew, when do you think the proper time is? We're going to go through each part of this question. So, when do you think the proper time is to take your shirt off?
Well, can I answer the part about you can't?
No,
I
Drew,
feel
you
like
have to answer the question.
No.
When is the proper time? Okay,
Mhm.
it's only during the Metcon. Is that all I can say?
Sure. So,
usually not to start the Metcon. It's usually, during the Metcon.
Someone just rips their shirt off before we even get started.
You can't do it at the start.
Okay. Well, what about the strength? Is there a part?
No.
No. So strength is no good. Warm up. Then
Drew's
we're
level
definitely
1.
not the warm up. And you don't think that somebody should just. What if they walk into the gym without a shirt
You can't walk. You cannot walk in that.
That's
that
level 3.
would create so
That's
much.
level 3.
I get made fun of so much for doing CrossFit. And that's like the one biggest thing is like, oh, when are you going to take your shirt off and do your CrossFit? So it's like, that's not really.
They are so jealous of you. Honestly, Drew, they have some there's some problems that they have to make fun of you for that. But sorry, go ahead.
So you cannot walk in with a shirt off. Okay.
All right. Well, so I think generally I'm in the agreement that it's a tool, not a trend. So we take the shirt off in the Metcon as a means to cool down and push through the end. Yeah. Okay. So Drew and I are on the same page.
I don't think that is a correct answer, but I think that is
okay.
your opinion. Yeah. Answer. Yeah.
I usually don't take my shirt off during the Metcon. I did Friday because it was 96 degrees in there, and it was just this really long. It was that long. It was Linda.
Yeah, so that's
really long workout. That was tough, and it's like, okay, I started with my shirt on, and it's like, nope, I can't. I need to cool down a little bit. And
I mean, the answer is whenever you feel comfortable, whenever you want to take your shirt off. That should be when you should take your shirt off. So I don't think you should leave your shirt on just because you're afraid of something. If you want to take your shirt off before you walk into the gym, that's totally fine. I could go into the whole spiel of it, but
what are the levels?
There's a huge transition that I love to see, and particularly we have mostly women, and there's this long members. It's like 70-30, and there's this long transition of like when it's not that I care that men or women are taking their shirts off, but it signifies something. And typically people are coming to us where they are not comfortable with their body and they want to make a lot of changes. So for them to go from always wearing a shirt when they work out to going to just a sports bra or just like shorter shorts, it's more of a signification of like, I'm now comfortable with my body and I'm okay with showing it. And so like, there are people that don't take their shirts off and are very happy about that. But I think it's like one of those breakthrough moments. It's almost similar to like, sometimes you'll see it's not the perfect example, but sometimes you'll see women at the top of a mountain with their shirt off and their back is to the camera and they just like are
And the
topless. And it's
titties
like
are
a
out.
freeing moment. Yeah. And they're just like, yeah, see, like I'm showing. So it's like,
So, release the titties.
right. So please don't do that at the gym. Just because you know, not that there's
All right,
anything
bring it
wrong with
back.
it.
Bring it
But
back. You got
yeah.
it.
But, all right. So the levels. There is level 0, never taking the shirt off, not even close. Then there's level 1 where you guys are at, where you take your shirt off at a very specific time, and there are very specific things that need to happen for you to take your shirt off. Like it is very hot and you're in the middle of a Metcon. Then there's level 2. You know it's about to get hot, and instead of wasting time during the Metcon taking your shirt off in a dramatic fashion, you take your shirt off before. That's where I am. Typically when I know that shit's about to go down, I just take my shirt off because I know if I start to
Don't
get a
even
shoulder
bother.
pump or whatever, it's gonna be awkward and I get sweaty and all that stuff. And then there's level 3, and this is very hard to get to, and I'm not at this level yet. And it's not better or worse, whatever level you're on. There are just levels. There are very few people, and you're only at that level if you can pull it off. Because there are people that try to be at that level, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? It should look really natural. And it's the people that just are shirtless all the time. But you don't like it doesn't look weird. Like if I got to your birthday party last night and I just took my shirt off because it was really hot, you'd be like, Elliot, why do you have your shirt off? But there are people that can just show up to your birthday party, like not jacked or fit or whatever. Maybe they're like more of the surfer style and they just show up without a shirt on. You're like, hey, what's going on? They're like, yeah, I boarded over here. And you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Like have a burger or whatever. And it's like that is like a level 3, like you could just have your shirt
They
off all
just
the time and
live
no one,
shirtless.
yeah, and no one is like, wow, this is weird. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah. I actually I know somebody like that, like a little bit of like a nomad vibe. Like,
and you're just like, oh,
yeah.
they just have their shirt off. But like if I were to
Like
take my shirt
always
off,
barefoot, always shirt off. Like we're probably lucky he's wearing shorts. Like that kind of situation.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. I like that. And I agree with you on the whole, like it is nice to see people get comfortable with taking their shirt off, having experienced that. It is like a breakthrough moment. I don't remember exactly like the date and the workout when I first decided like screw this, I'm taking my shirt off. I literally do not care what anybody sees or says. And it's more but I remember the feeling of being like feeling like wow, this is so much better. Like it probably was like the middle of July,
It's
cracked
much
the
better.
seal, and then just looking around and being like every hesitance I've ever had about that is like completely internal and not necessary at all because nobody cares. Nobody cares around me. Nobody's sitting there going, "Oh my god, I can't believe she's taking her shirt off," or "Wow, she is brave for taking her shirt off."
And
Like
if those
nobody.
people do that, that's still their problem. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
yeah, that is still absolutely their problem. And that's absolutely right because I'm probably somebody who would have thought that if somebody of similar shape and size to me did
Oh my
that.
god, I can't believe she's
Like, I'd
doing
be like,
that.
"Damn, good for her," or whatever. But then I think about it, and the more that I like, I've started doing these, like, all ladies competitions where, it doesn't matter what your shape or size at all. Like, we're just all working out and working hard. It's, yeah, it's nice to realize that we're all just trying our best, and our bodies are, uh, vehicles and instruments and not ornaments. So,
Yeah. And I don't think the goal should be to take your shirt off during a class to show off. I think it's just
no.
that it's no longer an invasion of your mind of whether you do or do not have it on. Like
Yeah,
if you always
yeah.
have a shirt on because that's what you like to do and you've tried taking your shirt off and you're like, I don't like how like sweaty and slippery I get. Like I don't like it. I like the fabric. Do that. You're not a better person if you take your but it's
Yeah,
like the person that purposefully, like you said, thinks about it and was like, I would like to take my shirt off, but like, people are gonna judge me and then they're gonna talk about me after. Like you gotta get rid of that.
yeah, you reach the point
Eventually.
where your desire to push yourself and work harder and feel better physically surpasses this mental block about other people thinking something about your body.
Right.
And that's such a like that line that you cross. Like I said, I don't remember the time, but I remember the feeling and being like something has shifted literally.
I know
And
the
Drew will
line.
get to that point when he shaves his chest.
No, don't shave your chest.
That would be weird, wouldn't it?
I shave my chest sometimes.
Really?
You do?
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Like I don't know.
It feels to me like a why bother kind of thing.
Yeah. I agree.
Sometimes if I wear a necklace, it pulls on the hair.
I don't
Oh.
wear a necklace.
Okay.
I'll see. I'll have to see what my wife says about that and report back to you on the whole.
Drew, do it for you. Don't let your wife gaslight you.
So, well, Billy asked this question. So, should we tell Billy what level he is in case he is listening to this point?
Oh,
'Cause he
Billy's level
strikes
1,
me-
and he is peeking into level 2.
I was
I was
gonna
gonna say he's almost a 2.
I
He's
feel like
on-
though in
he's-
certain
he's like
situations,
leaning-
but being
his
the
neck out.
boating guy, if he came in with no shirt on, I wouldn't blink twice.
He could easily be a level 3.
Yeah, I think he could, with the right drive, he could be a level 3 and
He's got the right
quick
personality for it.
He does.
I'm
Yep.
trying to think if we have any level 3s at the gym. I think I might be the closest level 3 other than Billy. Because I do drive to the gym, but when it's just like Meg and I working out, I'll just throw shorts on and just drive to the gym and just not be wearing a shirt because I'm like, why? I'm gonna sweat
Doesn't
on my
matter.
way to the gym and then take it off. But that's like the closest to level 3. But I would never show up at like a random gym unless it was like from the beach that just shirtless and just live that life. Show up to a tea party.
Yeah, I mean, I could just, like if Billy just like walked in with like sunglasses on, hat backwards, no shirt, it just seems to stack up for me.
Yeah, doesn't seem weird.
All right, well, Drew, you and I are level 1s. I'll probably
until
stay at level 1.
I shave my chest.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Drew's shirt is his chest hair. That's like his protection.
Oh, it's his safety net.
He knows it's true. That's why he's like not.
I've heard all these jokes before, Elliot. I've heard.
Are you really self-conscious of your hairy chest?
Oh,
do you
don't
even
ask
have
me
that
that
hairy of a
question. Don't-
chest?
It's very hairy.
What's your question?
Do you have a very hairy chest, and are you self-conscious about it?
Yes to both.
Wow. Okay. All right.
I know people. I know you guys. I know I
All
only
right.
watch you exercise, but I'm in there.
What am I self-conscious about?
That's a whole nother. We've had too many goal setting sessions for me to talk about.
What do you mean
That's
you've
true.
watched us and you know us? Like, are you saying that you know my insecurities? Is that why you bring this all up?
You get when you watch people, and Meg probably does too. When you watch people exercise all the time, you see vulnerabilities in the way that they do things and how they react during certain situations, and you can cast a pretty accurate net of how they handle other situations in their life. I could probably pick like a lot. I could probably nail down who is like where they're politically aligned as well, or how they feel about certain things. Like certain things, they just reveal themselves when you're really paying attention in the way that they say things.
Would it
Or the weird
surprise you?
questions that I ask.
Would it surprise you to know that I'm an incredibly right-leaning conservative?
That doesn't surprise me at all. I can actually see your MAGA hat, the reflection of the lamp right behind you.
Yikes.
We're laughing because I'm a flaming liberal, and he knows that. Okay.
Flaming liberal. Nice. Oh, well, maybe on a future episode, Elliot can do like a breakdown of Shannon and Elliot's Shannon and Drew's like personal.
Okay, I was like, I am not
traits
going to
or
do that
something.
for just random, like just go down the list and be like, okay, in alphabetical order.
No. We can keep it housed in here, safe space.
I will.
Safe space.
I'll tell you this, and maybe we can end on this one, and we'll see if the viewers come back for the results. I've been thinking about shaving my chest recently, just to try it out.
See where you land.
Maybe by the next episode,
Shannon,
it's going to
he's
happen.
almost where you were like 6 months ago. In the men, I think men are a little bit slower. They're a little more. I don't want to say stubborn, but they take longer to like come around. They kind of get stuck in their ways, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm fine with it," even though they might not be. So when Drew shaves his chest, that's your "I'm okay with taking my shirt off" moment.
But wouldn't it just be him being okay with his chest as it is? I didn't change anything about myself to feel comfortable taking my shirt off.
My argument is that Drew has always wanted to be able to shave his chest and just wear whatever, whether it's hairy or not, but he uses the hair as a protection. because then you're distracted by the hair. So sometimes overweight men will keep themselves hairy because they'll think like, oh, it's a little bit of a
I'd
distraction.
rather be the
I'm just
hairy
and
guy
big.
than the fat
But if
guy.
I shave, then all you see is the fat, which is what I've heard some people say. So his is his extra little kind of see-through shirt. Right, Drew?
It's I'm not really sure what you just said there, but yes, sure. Yep.
Wow, Drew and Shannon are both getting vulnerable on this episode.
It's okay.
Episode what, 3 now?
Can the title be the vulnerable episode?
If we get vulnerable at the end, we talk about the insecurities, but it's okay.
Yes. All right, shall we close?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Maybe next episode I'll talk about one of my vulnerabilities that's very embarrassing for me that I don't like to do, but sometimes I have to do it.
Okay. All right. Give me the outro. Give me the music.
Oh my gosh.
Let's
We went
say
rock or night
say
driving.
Goodbye.
Night driving.
Night driving. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening to episode 3 of the Dauntless Academy podcast. We're so happy you joined us. This was a fun one. We'll keep these coming. If you liked what you heard and hopefully watched on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel and come back for episode 4.
And to see if I don't have a shirt.
Yeah.
Shave the chest.
Yeah.